Akim Olufemi Gbajabiamila. God bless you all.
Hello and a warm welcome to this week's package of House Ticket, a legislative program on the activities of the House of Representatives, Federal Republic of Nigeria. The lawmakers' recess is still on. Our review of activities that occurred before the recess therefore continues, just as we bring you other unfolding events in the legislature. We shall take a look at the work started by the 9th House and indeed the 9th National Assembly as regards review of the Constitution, amendment to the Electoral Act, and the Petroleum Industry Bill, all of which are some of the major focus of legislations that the current National Assembly is optimistic of making a reality before the expiration of its tenure in 2023. Stay with us for the full package right after this timeout.
If we set our minds right, embrace each other in love and brotherhood, we will come through these troubling times. We will survive, we will recover, and then we will thrive. One nation under God, free, peaceful, and prosperous.
Thanks for staying tuned. The 9th House of Representatives on the 11th of October 2019, 4 months after its inauguration, unveiled its legislative agenda, a guiding document and declaration of intent to serve Nigeria with dedication while focusing considerable energies on those issues that most affect the citizens. Top amongst these national issues included the various reforms of the laws of the land, of which work has started in earnest 1 year after. Let us get a summary of the legislations already started on in our first report in this review package. Keep watching.
One of the bills penciled down for review is the Petroleum Industry Bill (PIB). The 9th House of Representatives acknowledged the receipt of the bill from the Presidency Tuesday, the 29th of September 2020 for consideration and passage into law.
I assure all Nigerians that we in the 9th House of Representatives fully intend to succeed this time around. However, I must appeal to stakeholders in the public and private sector, to the media, to the host communities, and all who wish our country well to support this process. Let us reject cynicism and resist all attempts to frustrate this reform effort in service of the narrow interests of any particular group. Let us put Nigeria first so that history may judge us kindly.
Work on the bill started at plenary of Tuesday, the 24th of November 2020, when the House set the ball rolling with debate on the general principles of the bill for an act to provide for legal governance, regulatory and fiscal framework for the Nigerian petroleum industry, the development of host communities, and for related matters. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, had encouraged all constituents, Nigerians and stakeholders alike, to join in the task of nation building by participating in the legislative processes of considering the critical amendment of the bill.
This bill combines in a single tone aspects of significant reforms to the laws governing the Nigerian petroleum industry that were previously set out in two distinct draft legislation, namely the Petroleum Industry Bill 2020 and the Petroleum Industry Fiscal Bill 2020.
The House leader who led the debate on the PIB took time to enumerate some of the innovations in the bill, while reiterating the resolve of the 9th National Assembly to break the jinx that has led to its inability of the bill to survive passage in previous assemblies.
We have a new commitment, a new innovation, a new creation, where you have what we call the Upstream Regulatory Commission, under which you have some subsections, some institutional amendments that will help that sector to be regulated very well in consolidation of the previous responsibilities of the DPR.
Contributions to the bill touched on employment opportunities for Nigerians, socio-economic challenges of the South-South region, tasking international oil companies on community service in the region, among others.
Now there is going to be very clear-cut parameters and clear-cut definition of host communities and what is going to accrue to them.
If the opportunities we had in the 80s, 90s, when we constructed a 5,000-kilometer pipeline in this country that transports petroleum products from the refineries and crude oil products from the crude tanks to the refineries and from refineries to depots. When, as at that time, Mr. Speaker, the area managers of NNPC who were managing the depots were like lords. If the PIB will cure it by way of the midstream, I'm for it.
We all know as Parliament the issues we are having with NNPC until today. They have quantum of money that they cannot be accounted for because of the mismanagement. But with the whole community arrangement, the money will not go into any bureaucrat. The money will not go into any politician. It is the communities. If they fail to utilize their money effectively, they should hold themselves responsible for that. And their children yet unborn will not forgive them. It is only in this arrangement of the current PIB that we have this wonderful and acceptable arrangement that will ease the oil production within the area.
2.5% of their previous year expenditure will be provided for the host community. In that 2.5%, it specifically stated that 75% is for development projects, while 20% is reserve fund, while only 5% will be used for the management of the trust fund.
Others spoke to the urgent need for a maximum utilization of the nation's petroleum resources in view of the fact that the world is going green in less than 20 years.
What you'll be having that we can effectively assess is 18 billion 250 million barrel in 20 years time. So what happens to the balance from 37 billion, which is about 18 point something billion? It means that will be unassessed. Mr. Speaker, when that happens, it now means that we can only result in local consumption of that balance. But if we're able to effectively put up this bill as soon as possible, it will attract investors that will now lead to us being able to go beyond what I have just stated in figures. And that will help us.
The bill scaled second reading after a considerable time spent on the debate, and it was referred to the ad hoc committee on the PIB, chaired by the Chief Whip of the House, lawmaker Muhammad Tahir Monguno. The ad hoc committee on the PIB has since been inaugurated, and work on the bill is to start in earnest as soon as the 9th House opens for the year 2021.
Ayes have it.
A second people-oriented legislation awaiting the lawmakers' input and amendment is the Electoral Act. The amendment bill came into the 9th House titled A Bill for an Act to Repeal the Electoral Act No. 6 as amended and enact the Independent National Electoral Commission Bill 2020. The repeal and reenactment sought is to regulate the federal, state and area councils election and for related matters. The chairperson, House Committee on Electoral Matters, Representative Aishatu Jibril Doku, presented the general principles, highlighting the amendments sought.
There is the need to consolidate on the gains of our democratic achievements and to also address the lacuna identified in the electoral legal framework. A typical example is the case of the Kogi State governorship election in 2015, where a leading candidate died after the commencement of polls, but before the declaration of results. In addition to this, are concerned that the legal framework on certain issues should be well settled ahead of the 2023 elections. These are the use of technological devices such as the card reader, electronic voting system, criteria for substitution of candidates.
The floor was thrown open for contributions, and in doing so, the representatives raised various concerns, including the over 48 hours timeline given to political parties to replace a candidate in the event of a sudden death during the election process, the role money plays in electioneering, as well as the use of electoral devices, amongst others.
The money stipulated there, it's not about the individual, but a system to say this is when you are running for governorship or president or has a representative, this is what you are expected to do. We have seen what happened during the last election. 2015 was a typical example. Buhari, by his own declaration, you know what, but every Nigerian that supported him was subscribing, paying contribution, and that gives them ownership for the system. In America, that was taking example. You know the system, you know how they sponsor their own candidates. Every party member and those who believe in the program or the person they are sponsoring, they will subscribe. I think there's nothing bad in stipulating this program.
Yeah.
But how we raise the money should what?
Yeah.
One of the things that take a lot of money are the logistics like adverts, airtime, radio. So perhaps there might be a way where the at least the not the private but the government stations will now have to allocate time for every candidate for free, because that would take out a lot of the expenses and other things like that. And that's what I mean by thinking outside the box. But if you want candidates they must advertise on TV, they must advertise on radio, and these things, there's jingles, these things will cost money. So we need to figure out a way to balance it.
More contributions to the Electoral Act amendment also brought to fore the need for a better and improved local government elections, failure of card readers, and time expiration for its use during election process, merger of political parties, vetting of sponsored funds, and capturing of Nigerians in diaspora.
Section 53.2, and I'll read it out. It says, which is page 6, where the votes cast at an election in any polling unit exceed the number of accredited voters in that polling unit, the result of the election for that polling unit shall be declared null and void by the Commission, and another election may be conducted at a date to be fixed by the Commission. My worry is with the word may. I believe the word should be sharp, because may means some people may be disenfranchised from exercising their adult suffrage.
The bill got passed at second reading and was referred to the Committee on Electoral Matters, which has promised to expedite action on it so that it can be passed, tested and approved before the next major elections.
So public say aye. Those against me say nay. Ayes have it.
For the Constitution review, numerous bills are up in the legislative domain for deliberations by the special committee set up for the review of the 1999 Constitution and onward passage by the larger House. Some of the bills are as follows. A bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to make provision for the financial autonomy of local government councils. Bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to provide for an upward review of the derivation formula for the inclusion of solid minerals and hydropower in the derivation principle. A bill for an act to alter the 1999 Constitution as amended to provide for the establishment of state police and to ensure effective community policing in Nigeria and for matters connected thereto. Others are a bill for an act to alter the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended to provide the legal framework for the financial and administrative independence of state judiciary, to establish state judiciary councils which shall be responsible for the appointment, promotion and discipline of judicial officers in the state courts and judicial bodies. The bill also seeks to give state courts powers to disburse money standing to the credit of the state judiciary or money appropriated to state judiciary in the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the states and for related matters. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended to set time within which civil and criminal cases and matters are heard and determined at trades and appellate courts in order to eliminate unnecessary delay in justice administration and delivery and for related matters. Other bills from the Senate needing constitutional amendment that will eventually seek concurrence of the House include, amongst others, a bill for an act to alter Section 76, 116, 132, 178, and 285 of the 1999 Constitution as amended to provide for the expansion of the time for elections to the National Assembly, State Houses of Assembly, the Office of the President and Office of Governor, and amendment of the time for the determination of pre-election matters so as to provide sufficient time for the conduct of party primaries and final determination of pre-election matters by the courts prior to the election day. The bill to alter Section 31 and 318 of the 1999 Constitution as amended to provide for indigenship by application. A bill for an act to alter Section 65 and 106 of the 1999 Constitution as amended to provide for the identification of women as indigents of a state by marriage when running for an office.
If you just joined us, the program is House Ticket. We're reviewing the efforts of the 9th House of Representatives so far in its work on the Petroleum Industry Bill (PIB), Constitution Amendment, and the Electoral Act Amendment processes. This segment continues on with the review by moving on to see what the various committees working on these bills have done so far. For a start, the various ad hoc committees have been set up and have interacted with stakeholders towards fine-tuning these important legislations that have great impact on the nation. For the Special Committee on the Review of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, it was inaugurated on Thursday, the 15th of October 2020 in a well-attended event. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustapha, who represented the Vice President at the occasion in a goodwill message, commended the legislature for past attempts at the review of the Constitution, which has led to the alteration that gave birth to the Not Too Young to Run bill. He therefore corrected the impression that the Constitution review exercise done in the past has been a waste of resources and nothing has been achieved as spread in the public domain. He promised that the executive arm of government will support the legislature in the all-important exercise, encouraging a narrower agenda in order not to end up having no results at the end of the exercise.
That the executive will give complete cooperation to the committee by giving appropriate suggestions, recommendations, and finally assent at the end of the process.
The inaugural speech of the Speaker, on the other hand, held that Nigeria at the moment needs a rewriting of the Constitution to better suit current aspirations and reflect the vision of the country's future. While welcoming stakeholders to the occasion, Chairman of the Ad Hoc Committee on the 1999 Constitution Review, Deputy Speaker Ahmed Idris Wase, said over 15 bills are before the committee to begin work on, and they cut across electoral reforms, true federalism, state policing, state creation, and judicial autonomy. Representative Ahmed Idris Wase added that despite the several attempts to amend the 1999 Constitution, there have been a continuous clamor for a much more fundamental amendment to address today's realities. This has informed the 9th House of Representatives' drive to embark on the exercise.
This and many other issues, I believe, will help us by the time we go through. We want to believe that the committee, if inaugurated, will set the ball rolling and we'll do our best to address all these issues identified and those unidentified now.
Stakeholders had the assurances of the House that the review will engage as many voices as possible to ensure at the end of the day that there is a constitution that addresses most of the current challenges faced by Nigerians. During the inaugural ceremony of the Constitution Review, there were paper presentations and goodwill messages. The paper dwelt on the topic fulfilling citizens' expectations and the imperatives for the review of the Nigerian Constitution.
Election is too manual, too expensive, too cumbersome, too archaic in a sense. The process of collation of results in the 21st century should actually be faster than what it is. But the law said that we must write the results manually and collect them manually from the polling units to the ward level, from the ward level to the local governments, from the local government to the state, and from the state to the national in the case of the presidential election. The Commission is determined to deepen the use of technology in elections. You have seen what we achieved in Edwan Ondo with the simple introduction of the Z-Card that enables us to upload election results real time as election is going on.
It should not be carried out under the twilight of an impending election when people read every single measure you propose or you want to take against the background of the exercise that is about to, which is very partisan. Everybody is angling for positions.
The Special Ad Hoc Committee has gone on with its assignment by calling for memoranda from all stakeholders with the following thematic areas as top on the agenda for the committee. This was on 17th November 2020. The memoranda requested were on federal structure and power devolution, local government autonomy, fiscal federation, revenue allocation, Nigerian police and security architectures, and judicial reforms. Other areas are electoral reforms, socio-economic and cultural rights as contained in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, strengthening the independence of oversight institutions, and amendment of immunity clauses in the Constitution, as well as state creation, amongst others. Technical work is expected to commence as soon as the House resumes this month. And to the Electoral Act amendment, which is one of the focal points of legislations for the 9th National Assembly, the House Committee on Electoral Matters, which is saddled with the responsibility of overseeing amendment to the Electoral Act, has since commenced work in earnest. This followed the various considerations and debates as well as passage of some of the bills which form part of the amendments sought to the entire electoral processes as guided by the law. Going further, the committee of the House, chaired by lawmaker Aishatu Jibril Duku, had been jointly working with her Senate counterpart to host stakeholder engagements from time to time. Along those lines, there was a public hearing on the 9th of December 2020 where stakeholders gathered to discuss the bill for an act to repeal the Electoral Act No. 6, 2020 as amended and enact the Independent National Electoral Commission Act 2020 to regulate the conduct of federal, state and area council elections and for related matters. At the public hearing, the Senate President Ahmed Lawan expressed commitment of the National Assembly to passing the Electoral Act into law by the end of the first quarter of 2021.
We remain committed to all the issues we have considered important in our legislative agenda, and without anybody holding us responsible, we have achieved most of those things that we have set as targets. And the Electoral Act amendment is one of those targets. So what we need is not holding us, because if you hold us, you'll distract us. Pray for us, continue to advise us, engage with us, partner with us, and we'll achieve those things that we have set for ourselves.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, expressed optimism that this time around there would be fundamental and structural changes across the electoral processes from nomination to inauguration.
I expect also that we will discuss the weakness in party administration and in the nomination process that have often served to distort the electoral process. We should also together to seek permanent solution to the worrisome and increasing disruption of election using violence by politicians and their supporters, apprehension and prosecution of electoral offenders to deter misconduct in the future.
And the chairman of the committees for both the Senate and House of Representatives assured that the proposed amendment would focus on the areas of public and institutional agitations, amongst others.
Greater institutional independence of INEC, 2. Legal recognition of electronic accreditation of voters, e-voting, e-collation, and electronic transmission of results. 3. Establishment of Electoral Offences Commission to prosecute electoral offenders. D. Include women, youth, and persons with disability in the electoral process. E. Strengthen the financial autonomy of INEC by providing legal timelines for the release of funds to INEC for the conduct of administration of elections.
Section 23, concerning offences of buying and selling voters' cards. Section 94, under conduct at political rallies and processions. Section 95, under prohibition of certain conduct etc. at political campaigns. And Section 128, under disorderly conduct at elections. Politicians must desist from using our youth in such a manner, and the youth must be properly enlightened on the consequences of such negative acts.
Other speakers at the public hearing included the former Deputy President of the Senate, INEC, amongst other representatives of the various organizations and critical stakeholders. There was advocacy for an amendment on the Constitution to deal with electoral offences with the jurisdiction vested with the Federal High Court instead of a commission. A proposal for the reduction of the cost of election in Nigeria and how the amendment would be of great benefit to the nation's democracy.
The essence of doing that is that we will not be creating additional bureaucracy for that. And secondly, it confers some neutrality on the process. Because when you create a commission, we've seen that sometimes it is abused. Because the government in power, which you don't know which government will be in power today or tomorrow, may create a commission that is answerable and sometimes considerate of the government of the day.
Out of the 91 proposals that was submitted to the National Assembly for the amendments to the Electoral Act, only 48 proposals were considered. Nevertheless, we believe that there is no doubt that this bill, if passed into law, will further improve the electoral legal framework and deepen democracy in Nigeria.
Other stakeholders who spoke called for the independence of INEC, while the disability community in Nigeria highlighted the near exclusion of the members in a section of the new law.
Section 56 is draconian because it simply said to INEC that INEC may include us, and we think it should change to INEC shall. Let me yield the floor at this point to Grace.
Memoranda received by the committee from this public hearing has been further scrutinized and a harmonization process has started. A recent activity of the Joint Committee saw a retreat holding from Friday the 8th of January to Sunday 10th January 2021. The committee is expected to continue its work with all the relevant stakeholders going forward, where memoranda will be further scrutinized and subsequent resolutions and harmonization of reports will be made to both the Senate and House plenary sessions in the coming days ahead. This is the much we can take on this package of review of 9th House of Representatives. We'll focus on reforms of the laws of the land. Thank you for sharing a half hour with us and hope we have brought you up to speed on the workings of our elected representatives, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Till we meet again next time on House Ticket, do stay safe always. COVID-19 is real. Bye-bye.